Hi, welcome back to part 2 of Devil's Advocate and Armageddon Daze. Pardon the lapse. We took a few days taking a look at the news with regards to Ukraine and why Russia is attacking at this particular point and why he's using very Goebbels Nazi propaganda, or should I say propaganda faking Nazism in Ukraine or in parts of Ukraine, and the reasons behind why they want to get it. I mean, we take a look at the history of Ukraine going back to 1945, or should I say 1939 to 1945, and you have got the Nazis in Germany who at one time were allies with Russia, and at some point they switched over. And within this tie-in, you had the Cossacks of the Ukraine, now in the southern region of the Ukraine on the Sea Azov near Mariupol, where there is consistent bombardment of the city and of places where children are trying to find safety, bunkers. And back in 1941, 1942, when Russia changed sides in World War II and joined the Allies, and when Zelenskyy talks of his grandfather fighting on the Eastern Front, he was probably part of a group of Ukrainians that were part of the Eastern Front fighting against Hitler and the Nazis. But there was one group down in the south, the Cossacks, who switched sides, and not because they were pro-Nazism or that way inclined. It's just that they also weren't pro-Bolshevik, bearing in mind that both the Nazis and the Bolsheviks commandeered the idea of social democracy, and once they were in power, social democracy was replaced by the communism, the extreme, and in Germany it was the Nazis who took over, and they were fighting on the Eastern Front. This is how Poland and Austria, Hungary, and the rest of the areas eventually got consumed into communist Russia behind the Berlin Wall, or the Iron Curtain, as it was called. And today we have what we call neo-Nazis. Now, this picture from somewhere in America, where neo-Nazis, along with the Nazi swastika and the Confederate flag, cite being patriots of their country. Again, more propaganda coming out from that side of the world. But suffice to say, these are not the people that Putin is fighting in Mariupol. It's not neo-Nazis of today or the Nazis of yesteryear. The Nazis aren't, I mean, granted, there are neo-Nazis around the world, but this is literally psychological warfare. It's a fake out. It's hard for us to actually honestly be honest with ourselves about our history. I mean, you take a clear look at, for example, British history and the cruel things that was done in the name of imperialism and colonialism. And then you take a look at World War II and how prisoners of war were so badly treated. There's some Indian prisoners of war in Japan. This is your more British or Scottish, European prisoners of war in Japan. These are the wounded in the trenches of, well, they weren't quite in as much of a trench war as World War I, but these are the walking wounded, not just the physical wounds, but the mental wounds. These are the children hiding in trenches in London as it's bombed. children going to school wearing gas masks, scared to death that they're going to be gassed. And children growing up like this, and we think to ourselves, oh, we were so hard done by wearing masks for a virus or being mandated not to travel anywhere. These people couldn't travel. None of these children could travel. And when they were travel, they were running in fear of their lives across the world. Nonetheless, this is a hard history from World War II and the state of the world today. Everybody fighting for their reason for being. And this isn't a neutral fight. There are many reasons that, I mean, they're using psychological warfare, but it's an geopolitical economic purpose that Putin is trying to achieve. And after over 20 years as the basic leader of Russia or the Russian Federation, perhaps he's been there too long. Power corrupts absolutely, and perhaps he has become that corrupt in his attempt to go back to what predated an independent Ukraine and an independent Poland and an independent Croatia and an independent Romania, all countries that could suddenly, after 1989, come out from behind the Iron Curtain and be with the rest of the world. But Putin wants to take us back to that time. And it won't end with Ukraine. Because while Ukraine has, well, I'll get into that into part 3. So bear with, and we'll be right back. To be continued.